Let the
So,
fatty out.
people think that
Yep.
air dodging is not hard to fight or that it's intuitive, simple. Let's see. So, this guy is going to jump up over his brawler buddy and approach me. I would like to point out that if he was boosting towards me, he would not be able to be doing constant damage to me. However, due to his choice of pressing, as it were, he's going to be able to do consistent damage to me while pushing forward, and he's going to be able to do it out of my normal line of sight. As you can see, if he was boosting forward, he'd be about ground level with me, which is quite a bit easier to aim and adjust for. However, I can't do that considering he's high above me. So he's going to push up in that quickly. He was perfect distance a little bit before, and he was pushing up that quickly. So here's a point where he jumped up, and I'm at the limit of my ability to look up. And he's going to dodge here as I start to track him. So I want you to remember, he jumped up to my limit, of the height that I can look up, and essentially that's the rest of the duel. He's just going to continue that over and over. So I want you to think about what happened in that duel. I saw a berserker and a brawler, and the berserker pushed up on me while doing constant damage. I was unable to back up fast enough with my groundwork abilities, considering there is no back dodge or anything like that. And I had to look at him and track him because I want to do damage to the guy. Now, I'm not saying I played perfectly. I'm not saying that guy isn't skilled, because he freaking is. He's great. Oh my god. But I would like to bring up the fact that there are a couple other things that make that unfair. Firstly, it requires my undivided attention, and I cannot position myself to deal with other teammates. He didn't kill me. The scout on the ground did. That's one of the most irritating things about the Windwalker dynamic. Not just the air dodge, but the windwalking. And while this berserker is technically a worst case scenario for the air dodge and air windwalking, other mechs use it a lot of the time for defensive playstyles, offensive playstyles like you just saw, and it quite simply is too effective at keeping proper distance while allowing the player to do constant damage. And again, the fact that you have to pay so much attention to this guy who's floating in the air is a really big risk to your situational awareness. You are losing out on the X, Y plane to deal with this guy in the Z plane. You're giving up the ability to maneuver for the XY plane if there are any other teammates that this guy has to deal with. I mean, the scout killed me. He didn't kill me. The scout killed me. And I couldn't position to deal with him. I didn't know what the heck was going on in terms of that. I'm trying to focus on this guy in the air, and it really is. It's taking up all of my ability to focus in that single plane. Along with that, and not only that, but remember the sheer awkwardness of it, okay? I'd like to bring that up as a pretty hard point, okay? When we're dealing with targets on the XY plane, there is no limit to how you can turn your mech. All the way around, you can turn it 360 degrees. When we start to get into these fights where people jump up in the air, they're really commonly hitting that angle of elevation that you're limited to. It's incredibly frustrating, and it happens all the time. It quite simply feels painful for me. And there's not really much I can do about that as a groundwork player, especially as a heavy mech particularly, but as we have limited turn rates and limited, I think more limited elevation, but I'm not sure on that. But it's purely awkward, okay, and hard to fight from that perspective as well, because you're having to deal with a limit to your elevation in a lot of cases. So, to put it in a nutshell, it's bad. The wind walking is bad because it lets people press up and retreat while doing constant damage in a very normalized manner and very simple manner. It's bad because it lets people retreat or use burst damage in derpy ways to just... it's just bad in that regard. It lets people play defensive and offensive in a very particular way. To contrast it with ground movement, sort of when you committed, you were committed, and it was also not that easy to retreat because, again, you had a back dodge. Thirdly, it's bad in that it takes up so much of a person's situational awareness to deal with. Okay, if I'm having to deal with an air target, I am literally only dealing with that air target. I cannot deal with this air target and ground targets at the same time. When we're talking about Old Hawken and how you dealt with people, you could deal with multiple people because they were all on the ground, and you could maneuver and you could deal with this. And I would like to hammer home the fact, in my opinion, that this air mechanic, in general, is harming the depth of the game in regards to the old tangoing battles, the old tightness of the Hawken that was around in 12.12.12 to the first Ascension update. The groundwork gameplay that was put into the game was not designed to be able to deal with this air dodge shenanigans, these wind walking shenanigans. It simply is not able to handle it. The two fighting styles do not mesh in a meaningful way in Hawken, and you can tell, in my opinion, with how you're constantly hitting the angle of elevation limit. It just doesn't flow, in my opinion. Anyway, that's just my opinion. I'm sorry this video dragged on for so long. I am a tree. Good night, people.